Japanese archipelago is in danger. Seismic and volcanic activity. Interconnection between Aira and Yellowstone. What did Alachra science researchers warn about in 2014? What can we do today to save 126 million human lives? Watch in the new episode of Climate Control. The idea for this episode came to us after we watched a video with Jana, which we found on TikTok.
As we know, severe cataclysms will soon take place on Earth. Where will they start? We are trying to solve this issue. We are trying to negotiate so that this does not happen. We are very sorry for Korea and Japan because very good people live there. We are doing everything we can to prevent this from happening.
This video may seem frivolous at first glance, but this information is confirmed by numerous facts. In 2014, in the report on the problems and consequences of global climate change on Earth, effective ways to solve these problems, Alachra science researchers warned that the probability of the Japanese archipelago disappearing by 2024 is 70%. In other words, it can happen within the next 3 years, and there is a 99% chance that it will happen by 2032, meaning within the next 11 years. We are obliged to warn the residents of Japan about this danger so that they could be relocated to safe areas in advance. 126 million human lives are actually at stake. According to the Volcano Discovery website, 362 earthquakes happened in Japan in March 2021 alone. Those include 16 earthquakes with a magnitude of 5.0 to 6.0 and one with a magnitude of 7.0, after which there was a warning about the threat of a tsunami. These numbers are 5 times higher than in March 2020. Along with the earthquakes, the Sakurajima volcano has become active. It is located in the Aira caldera, which is one of the most dangerous calderas in the world, taking into account the influence of cosmic factors and the increased seismic and volcanic activity in this region. A global disaster may happen at any moment. This provokes particular concern about people who live on these territories and gives a clear understanding that it is necessary to consolidate the efforts of the international community already, now, in order to help save the lives of more than 126 million people by promptly relocating them to the continent to safer regions. Back in the middle of the last century, a famous American clairvoyant and healer, Edgar Cayce, also wrote in his prophecies about Japan, "There will be the following changes in the physical appearance of the planet. There will be a breaking up of the landmass of the western portion of America. The larger part of Japan will go into the sea. There will be certain changes to the northern parts of Europe. Lands will rise up out of the Atlantic Ocean off the east coast of America." Is such a developed country as Japan ready to cope with the upcoming cataclysms? And are we ready to help relocate its inhabitants to more favorable regions? Yes, powerful earthquakes and tsunamis periodically happen in Japan, and volcanoes erupt. What is so unusual there? However, now, the situation is not quite typical since we are currently living through another 12,000-year cycle of global cataclysms. When under the impact of cosmic factors, huge energy accumulates in the Earth's core and is forced out. As a result, tectonic plates are moving, volcanoes are waking up, and irreversible disasters can happen at any moment. As mentioned earlier, Alachra science researchers warned about the danger of the Japanese archipelago's disappearance back in 2014, as they had revealed certain correlations. A quote from the report: "The conducted research identified an extremely alarming fact. Judging by the graphs of neutrino emission and the intensity of the septon field of the Earth, there is a close parallelism between the processes taking place in the most ancient calderas, Aira caldera, the Kagoshima Prefecture, Kyushu region, Japan, and Yellowstone caldera, Wyoming, USA. Despite the fact that they are separated by the Pacific Plate, it has been observed that the processes taking place in their interior are interconnected in some way and are often interdependent. It was determined that even after the activation of adaptive mechanisms in Aira caldera, neutrino emission and the septon field intensity recorded both in the area of the Aira caldera, Japan, and the Yellowstone caldera, USA, remained practically identical. The graph shows the curve that indicates their steady growth. All these and many other facts point at the accumulation of energy in the Earth's interior, which, when released, may trigger a devastating worldwide catastrophe. According to the calculations made by our experts, this will happen in the coming decades. In case of a simultaneous eruption of the two supervolcanoes, Aira caldera and Yellowstone caldera, located in different parts of the world, there is a threat of a total annihilation of mankind. The thing is that the Japanese archipelago lies at the junction of four tectonic plates: Pacific, North American, Philippine, and Eurasian. These giant plates move, collide, and pass under or over neighboring plates, exposing Japan to the danger of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions more than any other country. There is a narrow trough, the Nankai Trough, along the eastern side of the Sea of Japan. It passes along the floor of the Pacific Ocean near the Japanese coast, the Shizuoka Prefecture, and the island of Kyushu, where the Philippine Sea Plate goes under the Eurasian Plate. In recent years, Japanese websites have warned local residents about the high probability of an earthquake in the Nankai Trough. Powerful earthquakes happen every 100 to 150 years along the fault, and the last one occurred more than 70 years ago. There is a 70 to 80% probability of a strong earthquake in the Nankai Fault within the next 30 years. The Nankai earthquake is a mighty earthquake with an epicenter at the junction of the plates. Such earthquakes happen regularly and cause powerful tsunamis, and the biggest effect may be observed in the range from Shizuoka Prefecture to Miyazaki Prefecture, with a 7.0 magnitude aftershock, which is the strongest on the Japanese seismic intensity scale. A natural disaster can affect 40 of the 47 prefectures in Japan, where more than 2.4 million homes will be destroyed as a result of an earthquake, tsunami, and subsequent fires. Alexey Lyubushin, chief researcher at the Schmidt Institute of Physics of the Earth of the Russian Academy of Sciences, by analyzing ground noises, had managed to predict the earthquake in Tohoku in 2011, 3 years before it happened. In the bowels of our planet, there is convection. Magma and lithospheric plates are constantly moving. This causes the Earth to produce noise. Back in 2008, Lyubushin already noticed that ground noises under Japan began to synchronize, according to the scientists' hypothesis. This is the first sign of an impending powerful earthquake, and he published several warnings on this subject. The Japanese did not believe that. The most unpleasant thing is that even after the disaster, the synchronization of low-frequency noise remained. Alexey Lyubushin believes that Japan should expect another earthquake, no less devastating, and its epicenter is to be located near the country's capital city, Tokyo.
Japan. Well, Japan is still after the Tohoku earthquake. I was waiting for what was about to happen in Tohoku, and that was it. The entire history of seismic vibrations on the Japanese islands is being reset. Everything begins anew. As it was in the year 2003, so it continues. And after the year 2012, the trend of seismic noise began to simplify again, and it is simplifying to this day, while the correlation is increasing. It seems that this Tohoku earthquake, just like the earthquake near the coast of Hokkaido in the year 2003, was a foreshock of a more powerful Tohoku earthquake. And it turns out that Tohoku is the foreshock of an even more powerful earthquake. But how much more powerful can it be? The magnitude was 9.1. How much more? There is a work by a couple of outstanding American seismologists who analyzed the data and expressed a seditious idea that there could be a magnitude of 10 in Japan. If we put all this together, Then, based on the increasing trends in seismic hazard in Japan, everything indicates this will happen to the south of Tokyo, the Nankai Trough, with a magnitude of 10. If there was a magnitude of 8 and 9, the magnitude of 10 will be the next one. All of them were foreshocks. Each previous earthquake led to an increase in the magnitude of the subsequent one. What if there is a 10? If all this happens, God forbid, of course, it will be a very big trouble for humanity. Quite possibly, all these trends indicate that this will end in a big Japanese disaster.
Most powerful earthquakes in the history of Japan. The first, the Great Kanto. Earthquake with a magnitude of 8.3 happened in Japan on September 1st, 1923. The name came from the Kanto region, which was damaged the most. The earthquake killed several 100,000 people and caused significant material damage. By the scale of destruction and the number of victims, this earthquake was the most destructive in the entire history of Japan, but not the strongest one. For example, the earthquake of 2011 was more powerful, but caused consequences of a lesser scale. The second, the Sanriku earthquake and tsunami are among the most destructive in the history of Japan. As a result of the 7.2 magnitude earthquake that occurred on June 15, 1896, a tsunami with a higher magnitude of 8.2 was formed, destroyed about 9,000 homes, and killed more than 22,000 people. Tsunami waves reached 38 meters in height. The echoes of the tsunami reached the Hawaiian Islands, as a result of which wharves were destroyed and several houses were washed away. Here, the height of the waves reached 9 meters. The third, on March 11, 2011, one of the most powerful earthquakes with a magnitude of 9.0 happened northeast of Japan, causing a very powerful tsunami. The earthquake epicenter was 130 kilometers away from the shore, under the sea floor, at a depth of 24 kilometers. It was the strongest earthquake in the entire period of seismic observations in the Japanese archipelago, and was among the top 10 most powerful earthquakes in the history of seismic observations in the world. It led to disastrous consequences for Japanese residents, including a serious accident at the Japanese nuclear power plant Fukushima 1. Scientists estimate that such strong earthquakes in the area of the largest island of the Japanese archipelago, Honshu, occur no more than once every 600 years. Satellite data recorded that as a result of this earthquake, the east coast of Honshu Island shifted by 2.5 meters to the east, while the Oshika Peninsula located northeast of the Honshu Island shifted by 5.3 meters southeast and descended by 1.2 meters. This event provoked a particular concern among the world scientific community. After all, the height of the waves and the area that was underwater exceeded all preliminary calculations of Japanese scientists. A disaster of such a scale has shown how unprepared even such a technologically advanced country as Japan, one of the leaders in fundamental scientific research, was in the face of such disasters, and that the tragedy of one country becomes the tragedy of all humankind. What happened in 2011? The Pacific lithospheric plate became more active in subduction zones. This event became an indicator of a new phase of seismic activity associated with acceleration of the movement of this lithospheric plate. Displacement of the geomagnetic poles located in eastern Siberia and the Pacific Ocean, which are primarily influenced by cosmic factors, led to large-scale changes in the century-old magnetic variations in the territory of the Japanese archipelago. Scientists who analyzed the consequences of this natural disaster discovered that before the beginning of seismic activity, there were anomalies in the Earth's magnetic field. Subsequent forecasts by various world scientists were built precisely taking into account the fact that in the neighboring non-functioning focal zones, tectonic stress will become even more intense and will be at a critical level. However, increased seismic activity is not the only problem in this region. About 7% of all volcanoes on the planet are concentrated around the Japanese archipelago, including the supervolcano, the giant volcanic Caldera Aira. which poses a serious danger today with its active volcanoes. Aira caldera. Once, there was a large volcano in the southern part of Kyushu Island, which during its eruption about 22,000 years ago collapsed under its own weight into an empty magma reservoir. The eruption was accompanied by large pyroclastic flows and discharges of volcanic materials, the total volume of which was about 400 cubic kilometers. In place of the collapsed volcano, the giant Aira caldera, 17 by 23 kilometers in size, was formed. Nowadays, it is one of the largest calderas on Earth and covers most of the Kagoshima prefecture and Jana. About 13,000 years ago, formation of the Sakurajima volcano began along the southern border, inside the Kagoshima Bay. First, it built an island called Osumi, and in 1914 it formed an isthmus that connected the island with the main part of Kyushu. The magmatic center of Aira is located at a depth of just about 10 kilometers. The caldera is still active and capable of causing major eruptions again. There are all the prerequisites for that. In particular, in recent years, soil uplift has been recorded in the northern part of the caldera. Currently, more than 900,000 people live in the Caldera Aira area. Setsuya Nakata, professor at the Earthquake Research Institute of the University of Tokyo, an expert in petrology and geology of volcanoes, writes in his scientific work, "The volcanic history of the Japanese islands may be compared with the volcanic history of Chile and Indonesia. It becomes clear that Japan has not had major eruptions compared to Chile and Indonesia. Despite the geological similarity, this calmness may imply a statistical probability of major eruptions in the near future due to accumulation of magma. At some point, almost all areas of the Japanese islands are likely to be affected by a major volcanic eruption, and there is constant small and moderate scale volcanism in many places. Therefore, volcanoes and their dynamics are fundamental aspects of the geological heritage of this archipelago. In this sense, Japanese volcanologists and natural science teachers have a unique responsibility, not only for continuing research in the field of forecasting volcanic eruptions, mitigating their consequences, and monitoring volcanoes, but also for effectively reaching out to people and spreading information. Also, Japanese scientists speak about an imminent eruption at Mount Fuji. Hiroki Kamata, professor of volcanology at Kyoto University, stated, "Mount Fuji is preparing for the next eruption. More than 300 years have passed since the last eruption in 1707. The silence of the volcano exceeds the previous interval of 200 years. The volcano has been preparing for another explosion for a long time. After the earthquake that hit the Tohoku region in 2011, it became more unstable than ever. I believe this makes an eruption inevitable." The increasing seismic activity around the area of Fujiyama volcano is confirmed by diagrams of the Volcanic Monitoring and Warning Center of Japan Meteorological Agency. Aso caldera. Aso caldera is one of the largest in Japan and in the world. It stretches for 25 kilometers from north to south and 18 kilometers from west to east. Its circumference is about 120 kilometers. 50,000 people live in the caldera area. The active Nakadaki crater of the Aso caldera is a popular tourist attraction. The seismic network of Japan Meteorological Agency has recorded an increase in seismic activity in the Aso caldera, associated with periods of fluctuating volcanic tremors, which is a typical sign of an upcoming eruption.
Yes, scientists themselves say that these are times of uncertainty, times when it is not clear what is going on or what to expect. They already describe the points of no return of climate changes, meaning there are certain changes after which,
of course,
the situation can't be reversed already.
this is impossible.
Yes, it's impossible. I mean, it's already only increasing, and there is a growing assertion that they are sort of increasing with geometric progression, and it is becoming more and more difficult to stop all this. And most importantly, under these conditions, even the scientists themselves appeal to the fact that we need to be first of all human. We need to unite and look for these
Ways of solving the current situation.
Yes, the ways of solving the situation
Of course, it
together.
will won't work out any other
that
way.
it is impossible to solve it individually.
If people do not unite, it will be the death of humanity in the literal sense. There is no other way. And again, guys, it's not a scary story. We were told back then that we scare people. Now they are saying that we are using trendy topics. Guys, it's not a trendy topic for us. And we don't scare anyone. We are talking about facts that are coming true. We are talking about what is happening tomorrow.
Nuclear power plants and industry in Japan. A high risk of a technogenic disaster. The entire Japanese island arc is subject to frequent intense tremors, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, and due to a high number of nuclear power plants on the Japanese islands, there is a high risk of a technogenic disaster to be triggered by natural cataclysms. Before the Fukushima disaster in March 2011, Japan had 54 operating nuclear reactors. After the Fukushima disaster, operations of all Japanese nuclear power plants were gradually suspended for inspections and modernization. The last operating reactor was shut down in May 2012. 33 nuclear reactors are formally classified by the International Atomic Energy Agency and the government of Japan as operational. The presence of chemical, metallurgical, automotive, and shipbuilding industries in the country creates additional risk for a leakage of harmful chemicals during natural disasters. At this time, the Japanese chemical industry is a leader in the Asian market and ranks second in the world.
There are more than 30 nuclear power plants in Japan. There are also more than 30 nuclear power plants in South Korea, where I live. The entire south of China is also covered with nuclear power plants. And if we take North Korea, there are nuclear weapons there. During such severe cataclysms, they simply will not have time to neutralize all these stations. And it will not only be solar radiation. So far, humanity simply does not understand how global this is.
Cyclicity of global climate disasters. Japan became an archipelago about 12,000 years ago, after the flood. Before that, it was a part of the mainland. In academic science, this time is attributed to the end of the so-called Ice Age, while in alternative literature, it is associated with the events of the flood, when there was a significant shift in the position of the planet's poles. An example is the flooded city of Yonaguni near the Japanese islands, which went under water about 12,000 years ago when the flood took place. And as we know, every 12,000 years, global cataclysms happen on Earth and change the appearance of the planet, flooding some continents and grazing others. Nowadays, our civilization is living at the end of the 12,000-year cycle when dramatic changes are going on. Japan is one of the countries that is at the epicenter of climatic events. At the same time, it is one of the most densely populated regions in the world. In 2020, we reached the second stage of development of climate disasters, when cataclysms are synchronized. Among recent events, we can see that furthermore, often natural phenomena happen simultaneously. Whole lists of hurricanes, hailstorms, fires, massive floods, high and low temperature records are recorded around the world. Earthquakes of enormous power are now not limited to foreshocks and aftershocks, and they cover vast territories. Are there still skeptics who do not believe that the world is rapidly changing? Should we really wait for natural disasters to force us to stop seeing people outside our circle as strangers and aliens? Or are we able to take a step inside ourselves and lend a helping hand to any person in trouble? After all, climate tension is now observed not only in Japan, but all around the world. In the current format of consumer society, it's impossible to relocate people from a whole country due to economic, political, and other reasons. In fact, human life is far from being a priority nowadays. Yet, already now, people across the world are uniting, regardless of their nationality and race, in order to build a creative society where the value of human life is paramount. Human life indeed has the highest value and must be protected as one's own. The purpose of the creative society is to ensure and guarantee the value of every person's life. If one person is valuable, it means all people are valuable. Only in such a society will the entire humanity be able to survive climate disasters and build a real world where there will be harmony and prosperity for all people. As a matter of fact, we don't need a lot of space for all of humanity to live. A territory of one state with the population density of such cities, for example, as Mexico City or Tokyo, is enough to live comfortably. We have a common home, planet Earth, and we have nothing to divide us. We, people ourselves, can build a different world worthy of humanity. In the creative society, high technology will be available, which will make it possible for us to not only survive, but also to reach the level of a highly developed civilization.
Hello, my name is Vlad. I have been living in Japan for 6 years. During this time, I noticed a significant change in the local climate. The number and strength of earthquakes increases annually. The same is with activation of volcanoes. A few years ago, I read a scientific report on climate change. It contained information about these events and further disasters. This information is not being covered by Japanese television. But all the events described in the report are now coming true with great accuracy. Due to the upcoming disasters, we all need to unite in order to survive. It's time to wake up and take responsibility for our lives.
My planet is groaning and shuddering. Increasingly, it is shaking by earthquakes. Volcanoes are erupting. Tons of water are falling from the sky in a matter of minutes. Climate is changing, and it is obvious that our climate zones will change soon. Our planet can become very harsh and difficult to survive on. Are we ready for this? I am writing on the paper because I don't know how global the upcoming cataclysms will be and whether the internet and electricity will be available. Perhaps those few survivors will have to relearn how to obtain fire. Why am I writing this? I hope that future generations will get rid of the plague of consumerism, aggression, and self-isolation. I sincerely hope that they will do what we should have done a long time ago. They will be able to unite on the principle of mutual aid and honesty in front of themselves and each other. This is the only formula that gives hope for the survival and development of civilization. I think that we have this last chance to unite and prepare to face the upcoming changes with dignity. I still believe that on July 24th, the conference Global Crisis, this already affects everyone, at Allatra Unites, will be able to awaken many people, and together we will make a difference.